The boundless blue of the Pacific Ocean is deceptive. By day, it promises freedom and adventure, caressing the ship's sides with a warm wave. But at night, its whisper changes, and in the bottomless darkness, stories are born that would be better off left at the bottom forever. Our story begins under the bright sun, aboard a rented research vessel, carrying 7 people towards what they believed to be the adventure of a lifetime. At the center of this small group was Ethan Parker, a 28-year-old photographer with burning eyes and an insatiable thirst for adventure. It was he who convinced the others to trade a mundane vacation for an unusual route to the Philippines. His companion was Megan Collins, a 27-year-old travel blogger whose smile was as bright as her camera's flash. She looked at Ethan with adoration, ready to follow him to the ends of the earth. Joining them was Daniel Brooks, or just Danny. At 31, he was the complete opposite of Ethan, a skeptical IT specialist whose participation in this venture was explained only by an old friendship and a desire to prove that there was nothing mysterious left in the world. The fourth of the travelers was Jessica Miller, or Jess. A doctor by profession, serious and sensible, she was the voice of reason in their group, her calmness serving as a counterbalance to Ethan's enthusiasm. The ship's crew was a match for the diverse company of passengers. Captain Robert Hayes, whom everyone just called Bob, was a stern 52-year-old sailor with a weather-beaten face and a gaze that seemed to see right through the ocean. Mechanic Luis Ramirez, a reliable and straightforward man of 38 whose hands were always covered in machine oil, but whose word could be relied upon like a rock. And finally, Tommy Clark, a 24-year-old cook, a naive and cheerful young man for whom this voyage was the first great adventure of his life. 7 people, 7 different fates united by one ship and one boundless ocean. The first 3 days were an idyll. Dolphins, flying fish, fiery sunsets. Megan tirelessly shot content for her blog. Ethan took stunning pictures. Danny grumbled that the Wi-Fi was weak, and Jess simply read a book on the deck, enjoying the peace. It seemed it would last forever. But on the 4th day, the ocean showed its true nature.
Captain, we have a problem. A serious one.
The hum of the engine, which had become the familiar background of their journey, sputtered and died. The vessel rocked helplessly on the waves. Luis emerged from the engine room, wiping his hands with a rag. His face was darker than a storm cloud.
The crankshaft. It's cracked. That's it. We can't fix this ourselves, ever. This is the Sea Wanderer. We have engine failure. Coordinates over. The radio, fortunately, was working. The response came quickly, but was not encouraging. Help would not be able to reach them for at least 3 days. 3 days and 3 nights adrift in the open ocean. Not a pleasant prospect. And it was at that very moment, as despair began to envelop the group, that a dark silhouette appeared on the horizon. "Land, Captain! Look! Land!" It was an island, not marked on any map. Gloomy, unwelcoming, with sharp cliffs wrapped in a dense blanket of wild jungle. Captain Bob watched it through his binoculars for a long time, and his face showed no joy. Better to wait for help on land than to be adrift on the water. But I don't like this highland. The decision was made. They would lower the boat and set up a temporary camp on the shore. An hour later, 7 people were standing on a narrow strip of dark sand looking at their immobilized sea wanderer. They set up camp by a fire and, driven by Ethan's curiosity, decided to look around. "Just look at this! A real live wild jungle! Megan, get your camera ready. This will be your best report yet. Yeah, the best report on how we got eaten by giant mosquitoes. Ethan, maybe we shouldn't go into these thickets. Jess is right, Danny. We don't know what's in there. Snakes? Poisonous plants? But Ethan could no longer be stopped. He stepped under the green canopy, and the others had to follow. The jungle met them with humid, heavy air and a deafening chorus of unseen creatures. And soon they stumbled upon something they never expected to see. Amid the vines and tree roots, embedded in the ground, stood an old, battered private plane. The door was ajar. With a creak of rusty hinges, Ethan and Luis pushed it open. Inside, it was dim and smelled of decay. When their eyes adjusted to the darkness, Megan gave out a choked cry. "Oh my God! Those are people!" In a trembling voice, at both pilot seats and on the floor lay human bones and skulls, white, picked clean by time. Jess, as a doctor, stepped forward, her face perfectly calm, but her eyes betrayed her shock. According to the condition of the bones, 10 years at least. There are no signs of violence on them, at least none that are visible. While the others stared at the remains in a daze, Luis went to the cargo hold. "And what are these bricks?" The cargo was filled to the brim with dozens of rectangular bricks wrapped in silver foil. Luis tore one open. Inside was a compressed white powder. "Looks like drugs. A lot of drugs." Tommy, who had been silent until then, turned deathly pale. Then this wasn't an accident. Someone was flying this here, to this island, on purpose. Tommy's words hung in the heavy air of the cabin. The thought that they were on an island that had once been a transit point for drug traffickers didn't do much to boost their optimism. They climbed out of the plane, and the jungle no longer seemed so friendly. But the discoveries didn't end there. After walking for another couple of hours deeper into the island, they came to a small clearing and froze. Before them was an abandoned settlement. A few dilapidated huts roofed with old palm leaves. In the center, a fire pit overgrown with grass. The silence was almost tangible. Ethan, true to himself, immediately perked up. "Guys, these are real-life Robinson Crusoes! Look, they lived here! What a story!" And then they got tired of it and left, built a raft out of palm leaves and sailed off into the sunset. No mystery, Ethan. But Captain Bob, who was examining the huts, shook his head. His experienced eye noticed details that escaped the others. No, they left in a hurry, too quickly. Look, remnants of shoes, a rusty knife. You don't leave things like this behind if you're leaving willingly. At that moment, Tommy, who was wandering near one of the huts, bent down and picked up something from the ground. It was a small, faded plastic toy car. Tommy quietly said, "There was a child here." That small toy made a stronger impression on everyone than the skulls in the plane. The silence deepened, and for the first time, every one of them, even the skeptic Danny, had a distinct and eerie feeling the island was not empty. Returning to the camp on the shore, they built a large fire. But its light brought no comfort. It only made the darkness of the jungle thicker and more impenetrable. The sound of the forest, which had seemed like a hymn to life during the day, now became oppressive and hostile. Every rustle made them jump. Did you hear that? It's just some animal or a bird. Or those Robinsons came back for their plastic car.
No one laughed. A few minutes later, Jess, who had walked to the water's edge to wash her face, quietly called the captain. "Bob, come here, quietly." On the wet sand, a few meters from their camp, was a line of tracks, fresh ones, the tracks of bare human feet. They led out of the water and disappeared at the edge of the jungle. While everyone stared at the tracks, Megan, who was peering into the darkness of the forest, cried out, "There! I saw it! A light!" She pointed with her hand deep into the island, but no matter how hard they looked, there was nothing but impenetrable darkness. The light had vanished as suddenly as it had appeared. No one slept that night. They sat by the dying fire, taking turns on watch, staring into the darkness that seemed to have a life of its own. The morning brought not relief, but a new, bone-chilling terror. Lewis, who couldn't sit still, decided to go back to the abandoned settlement with the first rays of sunlight. He returned an hour later, his face ashen gray. "Someone was there last night." "What nonsense are you talking about?" "That hut where Tommy found the toy. Yesterday, its roof was caved in, but today it's been tightened, and at the entrance hangs a fresh palm branch, as if someone has marked their home." Now there was no doubt. All the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, forming a single, monstrous picture. The island had been inhabited. The people who lived here had disappeared for some reason, leaving everything behind. But someone, or something, was still here. Someone who walks barefoot on the beach at night. Someone who lights and then extinguishes lights in the forest. Someone who mends the roofs of old huts in the night. They sat by their extinguished morning fire. Suddenly, a cold, piercing wind blew in from the sea, and at that same instant, the jungle fell silent. All the sounds, all the bird calls, all the chirping of insects, everything vanished. A dead, ringing silence fell, and in this silence, all of them as one felt it, a feeling that makes your blood run cold. The island was watching them, watching intently without blinking, and it was waiting for something.